Okay, so now let's talk about KMS. And KMS is for Key Management Service. So anytime you hear encryption in an AWS service, most likely this will involve KMS. And KMS is an easy way to control access to your data, and the data is going to be encrypted by keys, and AWS KMS will manage this key for us. So KMS is a store. We have some control over it, but some things we cannot do with this store. And so that's how the security comes from. So KMS is fully integrated with IAM for authorization. So basically you're saying, okay, this application can access this key through IAM. And so if it can access this key, then it can encrypt or decrypt this data. So KMS, we've seen it's fully integrated with many AWS services such as EBS to encrypt volumes, S3 to do server-side encryption of objects, Redshift if you want to encrypt data, RDS again to encrypt data, SSM, we'll see this in the future lecture for parameter store, etc., etc., etc. Pretty much every AWS service is integrated in some ways with KMS. But we can also use the CLN SDK to perform encryption on our side, and we'll see this in the next lecture as we do a hands-on. So as a 101, basically, when you think about something, you say, okay, I need to share sensitive information with someone, with an application, you need to use KMS. That sensitive information may be database passwords, credentials to external service, a private key of an SSL certificate, basically anything that is sensitive. And so the value in KMS is that the customer master key, CMK, that will be used to encrypt your data, you can never retrieve it. You can never see what it is. And the CMK is managed by KMS. On top of it, KMS can rotate your CMK and make it change quite often. So the idea is that you are going to use KMS to encrypt and decrypt your data, and you never get to see the key itself. Now, we'll see in the diagram what that looks like to make it a bit simpler, but for now, you know this, you should not ever store your secrets in plain text, especially in your code. So the idea is that you would send your secrets beforehand to KMS to encrypt them, and then your encrypted secrets could definitely be stored in your code or your environment variables. And then no one can decrypt these secrets unless they have access through IAM to decrypt it with KMS. And so KMS, though, can only help in encrypting up to 4 kilobytes of data per call. And so this is super important to understand this. KMS can only encrypt up to 4 kilobytes of data, because the exam will ask you, hey, we want to encrypt 1 megabyte of data. How do we do it? Well, the answer is if your data is greater than 4 kilobytes, we can still use KMS, but we have to use a technique called envelope encryption. Now, envelope encryption is something I will deal with in 2 lectures from now, so forget about it. Just know that KMS for now can help encrypting 4 kilobytes of data maximum. So a database password, credentials, SSL certificates, all these things should be less than 4 kilobytes of data, so we can directly use KMS to encrypt and decrypt things. Now, if you want to give access to KMS to someone, you make sure that the key policy allows the user and the IAM policy allows the API call. So KMS, what does it give us really? It gives us the ability to manage the keys and the policies. We can create keys, we can rotate keys, we can disable keys and enable keys. So we get full ability to manage these keys, but we never ever see the keys themselves. Now we can audit the key usage using CloudTrail. This is very important. And there's 3 types of CMK or customer master keys you can have in KMS. You can have the AWS Managed Service Default CMK, and that is a free key. And basically, anytime you want to encrypt EBS using the default key, this would be using the AWS Managed Service Default CMK. We'll see this in the next lecture, how they look like. For the user key, if you want to create your own customer master key directly in KMS, you can do that, but it will cost you $1 per month. And if you wanted to create the keys yourself, you didn't trust KMS, but then you wanted to put them into KMS for storage, it would also cost you $1 per month. On top of it, every time you call KMS for doing an encryption or decryption or any API call, you will have to pay, and the cost is 0.03 for 10,000 calls. That doesn't seem like much, but if you start encrypting millions of data objects and retrieve them very often, the cost can rise very, very quickly. So let's be a bit more concrete in how does KMS work. So KMS has a multitude of APIs, and the first 2 APIs I want to introduce you to in this lecture, and we'll get to practice them in the next lecture, is the encrypt and the decrypt API. So here is our client, and the client is us, and we're going to use a CLI or the SDK, and we have a secret, for example, a password. So the password is a small secret, it's less than 4 kilobytes, so we can use directly the encrypt and the decrypt API. Here is KMS, and so what we're going to say is, okay, we want to use the encrypt API, so we send the secret to KMS, and we say, by the way, we want to use this CMK. So this CMK could be something, a CMK that you've imported or created straight within KMS. KMS says, okay, I'd love to encrypt your secret, but first I need to check your IAM permissions, because it will make sure that the client has the permission to encrypt the data using the CMK we've indicated. So it checks the permission, figures out, yes, we do have the right IAM permissions. So KMS within the service will perform the encryption, and it will send back to us the encrypted secret. So now we have the encrypted secret, and as you can see, we just sent something to KMS and it sent us back the encrypted secret. The encryption itself happened on the KMS side. Now we want to decrypt our secrets, and so we're the client and we say, hey, we'd like to decrypt the secret, let's use the decrypt API. And by the way, here's the CMK that enabled the encryption in the first place. KMS says, okay, let's just check your IAM permissions, making sure you do have access to this CMK and make sure that you can perform the decrypt API. Yes, you can. Okay, KMS will decrypt the secret for us and send us back the decrypted secrets. And so as you can see here, all the encryption and the decryption happen KMS side, and it checks for the IAM permissions. So that's it for the basics of KMS. In the next lecture, we're going to have the chance to practice encrypt and decrypt using AWS Lambda. It's going to be quite fun. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.